Hello, what do you understand about adverbs of frequency? Sounds a bit scary, but like most things when learning English, it gets less scary when you understand a few rules. Hi there, I'm Ed Anglish from Speak English with Ed, where we help new ESOL speakers learn English. Today we're going to be talking about adverbs of frequency. So let's jump straight in and have a look, eh? The only way to learn is to talk. So, adverbs of frequency. What is an adverb of frequency? Well, let's have a look, and we'll start at the beginning, just have a little bit of a recap and see what we already know. Well, an adverb is a word that modifies a verb. It can modify an adjective and another adverb. Now, a verb is a word that provides the action in your sentence. This is the thing that provides the information about what is happening in your sentence. Now, an adjective, this is a word that can modify a noun. So if you've got an object, a place or a thing in your sentence, you can use an adjective to modify it. And as we've just discovered, an adverb modifies verbs, adjectives and other adverbs. If you've got another adverb in your sentence, then you can modify that as well. So as an example, let's take a phrase to run. Now run here is the verb, and we want to modify the run and give a little bit more information about it. We use an adverb, so we can say to run fast. Now we've got a little bit more information. Now there are different types of adverbs. There's adverbs of time, of manner, place, degree, and as we're looking at today, frequency. But there's more than just those half dozen there. There are others, but these are the main adverbs that we use. So today we're going to be looking at adverbs of frequency. And an adverb of frequency, well, it describes how often the action in your sentence takes place. Okay, understand? So if we've got our verb to run and we say to always run, always is an adverb of frequency, and it's saying that every time we go out we run. Or it could be saying that every time we do a certain action of running, a certain type of, we may go shopping, you can say we always run when we go shopping. So always is adding information to the word run. It gives a bit more information. But you can, of course, add other adverbs as well. So we can say to always run fast. This is saying that you always run fast, or you always run fast when you go to the shops. So adverbs just add that little bit more information. So let's have a look at three sentences. Never I eat, I never eat, and I eat never. Okay, so two of these sentences are wrong. One of them is correct. Do you know which one is correct? But before we answer that question, let's just park these at the top of the screen and just let's step back a little bit and see. Now, a verb tells us what action is taking place in the sentence, and an adverb tells us how that action is taking place, what type of action it is, how it's happening. And adverbs of frequency tell us how often that this is taking place. So I just want to park them up there at the top of the screen as well for a minute while we have a look at this. Now this is a frequency of occurrence. Have you seen a frequency of occurrence before? Do you know what it is? Do you know what it's telling us? Well, it's telling us that if we never do anything, it happens 0% of the time. Or if something happens 0%, never, it never happens. If it happens 100%, it's always happening. We use always. So we can use never and always to describe something that occurs either 0%, doesn't occur, or 100% occurs all the time. In the middle, we've got sometimes. Now, this is for things that happen sometimes. Now, I relate this little this chart here to the rising of the sun. Now, I can say that the sun never rises in the west. That's the west over there for me. Never rises in the west. It always rises in the east over here. Always. So 100% it rises in the east. It never rises in the west. And that's how this chart works. And sometimes it never rises in there. It always rises in it. We might not always see it because of the cloud, but the sun always rises in the east. Okay, now in between, some things may just happen rarely. We've got the words here, rarely or seldom. Rarely or seldom. Now this means it doesn't happen very often, just 2, 3, 10 times, but it doesn't happen very often. So anywhere between never and sometimes, we use the words rarely or seldom. Having said that, rarely do we use the word seldom. You see what I did there? Rarely do we use the word seldom. Now, out of that sentence, just think about that sentence for a minute. Rarely do we use seldom. Which one of these two words here now is being used as an adverb of frequency? Rarely or seldom? You know? Well, it's rarely, because I'm saying not very often do we use the word seldom. So seldom is the thing that we're not using often. So I suppose seldom you could class it as in this context. You could nearly class it as a noun, but rarely is being used as an adverb of frequency to describe the amount of use that this gets. So rarely do we use seldom. Now if we go to the other end, and we often or usually, if we're using something at the high end of sometimes, we use often or usually. And this chart really is the adverbs of frequency, and it tells us how often an action takes place. That's what adverbs of frequency do. So where do you put them in your sentence for it still to make sense? You want your sentence to make sense, so where are you going to put them? We'll go back to us 3 original sentences here. Never I eat breakfast. I never eat breakfast, or I eat never breakfast. Which ones are these? We'll just park them again and have a look at a rule here now, or some rules. We'll have a look at some rules. Now, the first rule we've got here: the adverb of frequency always goes in front of the main verb. Okay, so the adverb of frequency goes in front of the main verb. Now, in the sentences above, the adverbs of frequency are written in pink or cerise or whatever colour it is, and the main verb is in orange. So let's have a look here again. The rule, remind yourself of the rule: the adverb of frequency goes in front of the main verb. So never I eat breakfast. Now, yeah, the adverb of frequency is in front of the main verb, eat, but there's a pronoun in between there, so it's not directly in front of the main verb. In the bottom sentence, I eat never breakfast. Now, never in this case doesn't conform to the rule because it isn't in front of the main verb. right? So never and eat in the first one, that complies, but we've got a pronoun in between. And in the bottom one, it doesn't comply at all because never comes after the verb. But in the middle one, now never is directly in front of the verb. So this sentence conforms to the rule. So this sentence is correct. I never eat breakfast. This is correct sentence. Now, a couple of other sentences just to get the hang of it. She always says good morning. Remember, the pink word is the adverb of frequency, and the orange the orange word is the main verb. Okay, so this comes in the correct order to apply to this rule, to conform to this rule. Now, he sometimes arrives. This applies to the rule. Sometimes arrives. Sometimes, if you remember, is 50% of the time. So it's an adverb of frequency. They often go to the park. Now we're getting up in the top end, not always, and more than sometimes. So we often go to the park. Could be with the family. You rarely get things wrong. Now we're getting to the bottom end. Remember, rarely and seldom. We rarely use the word seldom. So we've got rarely get things wrong. This means you don't get things wrong very often, and you're very good at getting things right. Okay, so all these sentences comply to the rule 1. The adverb of frequency is before the main verb. Okay, so remember that. So, I never eat breakfast. The adverb of frequency in rule 2 goes after a verb to be. So if you've got a sentence that contains the verb to be, then you put the adverb of frequency after the verb to be. Let's have a look at an example. I am usually sleeping by 11 o'clock. Now, I am, that's am is the verb to be. And remember, you must use the correct verb to be for the pronoun that you're using, or noun. If it's a noun or a pronoun, you use the correct verb to be that goes with it. So, I am, he is, she is, it is, etc. Use the correct verb to be. And then you put the adverb of frequency after the verb to be. So, sentences like, Jane was always well behaved. Right, well behaved. Well is an adverb that's modifying behaved. Always is the adverb of frequency to say how often Jane was well behaved. So, and it comes after the verb to be. He will never give you a reference. Okay, ooh, man, he must have been naughty. But he will never give you a reference. He will is the verb to be. He will, future tense. So if you notice here, we've got I am, present tense. Jane was, past tense. He will, future tense. But the adverb of frequency always goes in the same position. So the tense doesn't change the rule. The rule applies for all of these tenses, right? She is often exercising at this time. They were usually reduced in price. So it doesn't matter on the number that we're talking about. We're talking about they, which is a plural pronoun and a verb to be. But she, he, Jane, I are all single, so it doesn't matter. The rule still applies. The adverb of frequency goes after the verb to be. And there's rule 3. Now, the adverb, this is a little bit more to think about. The adverb of frequency goes between an auxiliary verb and a main verb. Okay. an auxiliary verb and a main verb. So what is an auxiliary verb? If we remember, they're helping words, a verb or helping verbs. They help make more sense of what's going on. So we've got am, is, were, was, been, will be, has, had, will have, does, it, will do. These are just some of them, but they're the types of words that are helping verbs. They're auxiliary verbs, and they're followed by a verb. So let's have a look. So the adverb of frequency goes between an auxiliary verb and a main verb. So Jane will always be well behaved. So we've got Jane, will is the auxiliary verb, always is the adverb of frequency, and then we've got the verb to be sitting in this sentence here. I would usually sleep on the floor. So would is our auxiliary verb, and usually is verb of frequency, and sleep is the verb that we're talking about, that we're modifying. I would usually sleep on the floor. And the same applies here. You should never work when you're tired. You should never work when you're tired. It's the same rule. And can you see it again here? They can often visit on Sundays. They can often visit on Sundays. You could be talking about your friends, your parents, your in-laws, your children, anybody. They can always visit on Sundays. We have rarely seen them this year. Okay, we have rarely seen them this year. So all these apply the same rule. The adverb of frequency is in between the auxiliary verb and the main verb. So these three rules will help you place your adverbs of frequency in the right place. They can go in other places sometimes, but if you follow these three rules, then you'll get it right for 99.9% of the time. And that's better than learning another dozen or so rules. So for now, just stick with these three rules. 1. The adverb of frequency goes before the main noun. Rule number 2, the adverb of frequency goes after a verb to be. And rule number 3, the adverb of frequency goes in between a double worded verb. So if you've got an auxiliary verb and a main verb, it goes in between the two verbs. If you just remember this, and you will be all right. Now, I really hope that you understand what we've just gone through. But if there's anything that you're still unsure about, then please drop a question in the comments below this video down here, and I will get back and answer you as soon as I can. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button just down here and ring the bell to make sure that YouTube will let you know when we release the next video, because I don't want you to miss out on the next video. I'm looking forward to seeing you inside there. So just make sure that you're subscribed. So stay safe, take care, practice, practice, practice. Now see you next time. Bye.